Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor, and we are in the counselor's office. We are back with some more Counselor Reacts, and today we are going to react to some interesting news on Marathon. Specifically, Marathon is becoming Bungie's nightmare. That is right. Just for context, let's be objective here. This is a true statement. Back when we found out about Marathon, people were uneasy about it. They didn't know what to expect. And then we found out that Bungie had done playtest, both for the final shape and for Marathon. They brought in some people from the Tarkov community because this was supposed to be an extraction shooter, and people didn't like it. So they essentially scrapped it. We know now that they scrapped that idea and have moved to more of like a hero shooter, sorry. And so that's the beginning downward trend. Now, Sony has also very much come out and said, hey, you need to focus on all these other things. You're focusing on Destiny and Marathon. And we all know now that Destiny, even though the final shape was good and well received, you know, got 9s and 8s out of 10s, and most of the community really enjoyed it, we know now, it's public knowledge, that it did worse than Lightfall. Now, to be objective, COVID had a lot to do with that. A lot of people were at home, so more people were buying. But also, they were riding on the hype that was Witch Queen. People loved and enjoyed Witch Queen, and people were expecting the same experience. Well, they met Lightfall, and it's not just opinion. It's actually factual that statistically, people did not like Lightfall. It is probably one of the most hated creations from Bungie that they've ever made, and that says a lot. They've made a lot of things, but stats, data matters, and they were losing sales. Bungie was in a hole. They were going downward. They oversold to Sony. Sony bought them up. I mean, they were literally going into solvency, which is not good. And that's just not an opinion. Like, you cannot have a company just like they would essentially dissolve. Bungie would have ceased to exist if they didn't sell off to Sony or some other company. Why are we talking about this? Because we have more news provided by GamePost. And it seems like they're also quoting Jason Schreier. We've covered Jason Schreier's articles before. But as you can see from the title, sentiment around Bungie's Marathon, not great. Like I said, if you remember, playtesters who first checked out Marathon when it was considered an extraction shooter also said similar things. This is not looking good for Bungie because they're making worse sales on the final shape. People are being laid off, and now they have not even released their second game, which is Marathon. The two things that Sony wants them to focus on. This is any company's nightmare. They're not doing good. And if I were employees at that company, I would be looking for another job. I'm just saying that. No, I know that is opinion based, but if you read the room, you know that the leaders at Bungie will cut people off first before they bite the bullet. So let's actually read the article and take my opinion from that. All right. Bloomberg's Jason Schreier shares a troubling outlook on Bungie's Marathon, describing the studio sentiment as not great. Amid recent layoffs and project cancellations, concerns are growing about the game's future. The future of Bungie's highly anticipated extraction shooter Marathon is looking uncertain, according to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier. During the latest episode of Friends Per Second podcast, Schreier, who has broke major stories about Bungie in the past, didn't mince words when asked about the state of Marathon. Not great, from what I've heard, Schreier said when asked about the sentiment around Marathon. There's a reason it was planned for this year and slipped a whole year. People that I've talked to are a little pessimistic about even hitting its current planned deadline, but we'll see. I don't know exactly when that is, sometime in 2025, I'm not sure. Yeah, the sentiment I've heard is not great, at least as of a few months ago. That is not good. Again, time is going to fly by, and it's going to be 2025 before you know it. I mean, they're already struggling on sales with Destiny. I mean, no one wants to buy episodes because, let's be honest, so far they're garbage. And that's not just me saying that. You could look statistically, 60% of the player base has left. And it's people have moved away faster from the final shape than they did Lightfall. Granted, a lot of people were going to always leave after the saga ended, so there is reason for that. But overall, this just alludes to the fact that if Marathon doesn't do well enough, Bungie is going to be struggling. Like, it is their nightmare. Just last week, the Destiny 2 developer announced a staggering 17% reduction in workforce, amounting to around 220 job cuts. This drastic move was accompanied by news that Bungie had shelved a Destiny spin-off project codenamed Payback. Notably, the spin-off was led by veterans Luke and Mark Nosewear, who have also exited duty. I mean, they heard the shift and they knew to jump off the ship. Like, you don't have two people who have been in the company for a very long time just jump off ship. I mean, if that is not a red flag for a company, that your two veterans have just jumped ship, I believe they did that because they knew that they were probably on the chopping block from Sony. But let's be honest, they read the room. And it's not just 220. There was also like 100 and something that were moved to Sony. And then anyone working on like side projects has been consumed by Sony themselves. So they're going to be working on them, not Bungie. Adding to uncertainty, Schreier also revealed that Marathon underwent a significant leadership shakeup in April 2025, with former director Christopher Barrett and the game's executive producer both leaving Bungie. Yeah, that's that's pretty bad. Yeah, just the fact that you have all these big names just leaving is not good. Following the report from IGN, it has been officially confirmed that Joe Ziegler, the former game director of Valorant, has taken the helm as the new game director for Marathon. Under Ziegler's leadership, the creative direction of the game has reportedly shifted, moving away from custom player characters toward a more defined selectable cast of heroes. So, like I said, hero shooter. So you should expect this to be along the lines of Valorant / maybe Overwatch, which I don't know. I mean, Valorant's pretty popular. Can they compete? That is, or if it's more like Overwatch, there's also Marvel Avengers. I don't play those. I've dabbled in them, but I've not played Marvel Avengers. I've played Overwatch. So someone who's actually played those games and even Valorant, like, sound off. What do you think about Bungie making a game? If you've played Destiny as well, what do you think? Do you think they can do it? I have no real say in this because I'm not experienced. So sound off down below. Watch the full episode of the... Okay, so, well, I'll put the link down below, so if you want to watch the whole thing, you can. I just wanted to read the article. Bungie has not revealed any details about Marathon apart from the initial reveal in 2023. With so many unknowns and internal changes, fans of Bungie Marathon might need to temper expectations for now. I would agree. I just... Sony... It's pretty bad. Overall, we covered the objectiveness of how things are, and it's not looking good. Marathon, I said when all the news about the first layoffs that the final shape would be make or break for Bungie. I was both right and I was wrong. I was right in the sense that if it didn't do well, they would probably have had more layoffs. What I did not account for is that those layoffs were always planned to happen. And I kind of alluded to that, saying there is a good chance that even if it did good, we may still see layoffs if they don't do well. They don't make money. Because that's kind of what we gathered from the first time, is that Pete Parsons was like overselling the game. Like 45% is a large margin to miss. Like, that is a substantial amount of like revenue to overshoot and project. And the fact that he was making that, it was very obvious that we would probably see that again in the future. We haven't heard anything about that or what they projected the final shape to make. But it was even rumored that even if it was like a blockbuster game, it may have not been enough to save the jobs that were lost. Again, I think, yes, there's a lot of commonality in the fact that people we're always going to lose jobs because of they overhiring because of COVID. But Bungie sits in a very particular situation because of the leadership overspending. Again, you don't go into insolvency are almost going into insolvency because of COVID or over hiring. You go in that because of bad spending, which is again from leaders. And there's a reason why there's now a co-CEO that Sony has established with Bungie. It's because the one that's currently there, Pete Parsons, again, this is subjective, backed by some objective data that we have, that he's incapable, he's incompetent. And so I'm going to say the same thing like I said the Final Shape. I think Marathon is make or break. If it doesn't do well, I do think that they will be dissolved into Sony. I do. At this point, I very well believe it's already started. Final Shape was good, but not good enough. And we saw people already being moved into Sony, people laid off. Marathon has to really bring in, like, rake in the money. I don't see, like, if they can't prove to Sony that they are worth the money that was spent. Again, this is the leader of Bungie, Pete Parsons, and anyone else that oversell to Bungie, literally scamming them, saying, hey, we're worth this much. In actuality, they're not. I mean, they got all that Sony money, and I don't know where it went. And it's funny because we were told back in the day that microtransactions and all that stuff would pay off for, like, the Whisper mission and stuff like that. So where has that money been going? That's my question, right? Like, and you know, there's pay pigs, you know, people willing to shill out money to Bungie. I mean, after the first layoffs, people came in droves saying, hey, we've got to support Bungie, donate your money, give your money. I'm going to continue to give Bungie my money to support them. I don't want any devs to lose their jobs. And I made like a whole video saying that's not our responsibility as a consumer to save someone else's jobs. That's the leadership's job, right? That's Pete Parsons, and he would rather throw people on a live grenade than do anything himself. Again, we're starting to get on to the ranting man. That's right. One of the commenters on one of my videos like, okay, I like your videos. You're ranting a little bit. I'm like, just call me the ranting man, and that's my nickname, the ranting man. But it's going to be a short video. I just want to get this out there. Like I said, I don't have a direct opinion because I don't really play Valorant, and Overwatch I've played like very casually. So sound off down below what you think about Marathon being like a Valorant or a Overwatch. Again, it's just obviously some kind of hero shooter. Sound off what you think. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, Mr. Rantin' Man is out. Be the best version of yourself, and game out.